All right, y'all. I feel like it's been a little while since we've had some proper, just like, business to address at the top of the show, but I have definitely got some things to address this time. So first off, the one that's at the top of my mind right now. Nightstride sent a message on the Discord, and this was in response to my query about the array on the profit margin that was supposed to be able to capture the energy of quasars. Nightstride got back and said that the jets are basically hyper-accelerated matter from the accretion disk of a black hole in the form of plasma. As for capturing energy from one, it's basically a giant laser. Getting energy from plasma appears to be the basis of fusion power, which is what our sun does, although the sun is mostly self-sustaining. So with that in mind, with the proper technology, the energy production could probably be measured on a scale relative to a star, which makes some sense. Black holes have strong ties to stars. Okay, so with that said, now I was like, okay, well, I got to take this the rest of the way. You took it most of the way there, and then you lateraled the ball. I need to take this to the goal line. I've done some calculations, y'all. I looked up a rough approximation of the total wattage of our sun. I'm basing it on our sun. A rough approximation is 3.86 times 10 to the 26 watts. So that's like the total output of the sun. But we're not going to be capturing all of that, right? We had some figures. Now, right away, let's be clear, this is all very back of the envelope, quick math. It's just giving us a rough idea. Definitely don't like turn this in as homework or anything. But we're going to do a little bit of math here. So if the total surface area of the sun is approximately 6.09 times 10 to the 12 square kilometers, and we're going to get a portion of that. Now, in that episode, I had said that the diagonal of the collection array was approximately 2 miles on the diagonal. Well, due to the Pythagorean theorem, we can treat that as a hypotenuse of a triangle. So we know that if we square that 4 miles, the squares of the two legs, the horizontal and the vertical dimension, are going to equal 4 miles. So using that, that could be a number of different triangles, but I chose one arbitrarily. I did some math and determined that it would work out if we have one side be about 1 mile and one side about 1.73 miles. So converting that to kilometers, we're talking 2.7922118 kilometers and 1.60934 kilometers. You working with that? We get a surface area that's about, if we're rounding here, 4.5 square kilometers. So tiny compared to the surface area of the sun. In fact, if we divide it by the surface area of the sun, we're going to be capturing approximately 7 times 10 to the negative 13 the energy of the sun. So, okay, all we really need to know about there, and because that's if we capture it perfectly, right? Which is probably not going to happen. Let's just treat that 7 like a 1. The important thing is, what order of magnitude are we? So now we've got the total wattage of the sun is on the order of 10 to the 26, and we're capturing on the order of 10 to the negative 13 of that. Basically, we get to just subtract 13 from 26, and we're left with collecting watts that are going to be on the order of 10 to the 13, which, I looked it up, that would be in tens of terawatts, which means my arbitrary guess of we're probably getting like terawatts of energy out of that, maybe, turned out to be, by this completely arbitrary and like very simple math, actually pretty spot on. Now, if we were able to capture the entirety of the sun's energy, that was on the order of like hundreds of yottawatts, which, anyway, I have math for you. I'm going to bring you math, much like a cat leaving a dead bird on your porch. I've brought you all some math, but that's not the only thing we needed to catch up on. No, I have something else. I feel a little bit bad about this one, only slightly, but I hound sometimes about wanting ratings and reviews and things like that. And apparently, I actually have an iTunes review from Doc H. It was left there like 2 months ago. I've totally missed it, almost exactly 2 months ago. 5-star review that just says, great blend of narrative and mechanics, happy to have found this, which Doc H, thank you so much for saying that. And because you gave 5 stars, I'm going to do something that's kind of like what I mentioned this way back in one of the outros, that you get to make an action roll with a d6 plus 5. Now I'm going to do it on your behalf. So we're rolling 1d6 plus 5 against the 2 challenge dice, and we get... Oh, hell yeah. No, you totally got a strong hit. I got a 6 on that plus 5. You maxed out the dice, and the challenge dice were only a 1 and a 5. So congratulations, you have a strong hit. As a result of that, I'm going to play you a full-on victory theme. Thank you so much, Doc, for rating and reviewing the show. It really does help bring more attention to it, which is the best way to say thanks to me. And of course, if the rest of you who haven't done that yet, if you want to have a chance at your own victory theme, all you got to do, leave a rating and review on iTunes, draw my attention to it properly so it doesn't take 2 months, and you can do that by letting me know what you'd like your victory theme to be. Just send me what it should be if you get a strong hit. I'll take it from there as far as how we should modify it if it's not a strong hit. But send me something short, something sweet, ideally something identifiable, but whatever you'd like to hear as your victory theme. You can send that email to starforgedpod@gmail.com, ideally with a screen grab of your review, or at the very least just let me know who you are so I know what to be rolling. You can also leave me a message on the Starforged Discord, whatever works for you, but I'd love to be able to play some more themes for y'all, but I'm going to need some more reviews. But anyway, this has been far too much at the top. Let's get to the meat of the show, and of course that starts with the theme music. Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforged series. Alright, don't worry. From this point forward in the episode, all the math is just going to be pretty simple addition. We're leaving any more of that algebra and geometry behind. So, last time we started off with the Beowulf and Newton's Folly both being drawn into what was a mirage in space. We explored how this mirage was created through sound waves that were being echoed and distorted through a wormhole, and that eventually when they came out, they were distorted so much that they had turned into this kind of captivating mirage. You know, it started as a television program designed to captivate one's attention, and it just became all the more so. Now, thankfully, Ironsides was not affected by these sound waves, but did notice them, and noticed the effect they were having on everybody else. Ironsides was able to make a program to counteract them. He made a basically noise-canceling tone to allow them to snap out of it, get out of range, and that kicked off what was basically a session of trying as hard as possible to catch up with the prisoner transport. Though before we could get started on that, we did have a minor issue where the ship inside the wormhole blew up and blasted debris out the other end and destroyed, well, not destroyed, but disabled a fair number of the snub fighters that we had outside the ships. We lost all of them. We still have others that are still being carried inside. They're not all flying around, but there were 6 of them that are just out of commission. And we made the choice that there just wasn't time to repair them. We had to catch up. So we left them back there, zoomed on from waypoint to waypoint, trying to catch up. And when we caught up with the ship that we were chasing, we found out that unfortunately, we'd been led astray. We were following a shuttle that had been there and had picked up the prisoners, but it did not go the same way as the rest of the fleet that the profit margin is part of. They specifically parted ways in order to lead Emile astray, and it worked successfully. They caught up with this shuttle in front of a fiery energy storm out in space. The guy mocked them and let them know that they would be going to Archer Rehabilitation Center, a place that we determine functions based on basically wiping their memories and recreating them as people. Now, that shuttle flew into the wormhole that was inside the energy storm. We elected not to chase them. They were a much more small and nimble ship, and it would have been a much more suicidal journey for us to try and follow afterwards. Besides, we had to try desperately to catch up with the real transport. We're in the very wrong part of space, but maybe there's still time. Emile talked everybody into not giving up, and they went all out to catch up. No longer really taking any time whatsoever to let the ship be ready for another jump. The instant that the battery would allow it, they would jump again, which over time just caused more and more stress to basically everything. We redlined our engines, we did everything, losing integrity along the way, we had used up all of our supplies, but we have indeed caught up with the profit margin. It's landed on an ice planet known as Osolok. And while Emile and the crew of the Beowulf and the crew of Newton's Folly don't know this yet, the reason that they have this little bit of time, what has stalled the profit margin, is that the prisoners, knowing that they're being taken to Archer Rehabilitation Center, decided to revolt. They found an opportunity. There's a bit of a firefight going on. Somehow, the capable prisoners found a way to arm themselves and have any kind of a stand against the people there, but it's probably not going to last very long. They do not have the upper hand at all. In fact, I should probably start this off with making a 4 clock that's basically like, if we don't do something before that, like if that clock fills up before we've managed to do something, they've all just been wiped out. Because they're going to be fighting to the death on this one. They don't want their memories wiped and to serve the Imperium. They're not going to give up and surrender. So whereas last time the Imperium was able to capture them and imprison them, this time that's not really going to be on the table. They're doing this to the death. So let's indeed make that clock. This is just a 4-segment clock that demonstrates how long the prisoners have before they're wiped out. Now again, we don't know about that yet, but it's going to advance nonetheless. Now speaking of the possibility of dying, I earned some XP last time when we finally made it in our destination. Just to keep y'all's records up to date, I have spent 2 experience adding a new ability to Fated. I figured this could get pretty hairy. Maybe it's time for me to get this ability. When you face death or face desolation while your background vow is unfulfilled, it is not yet your time. Instead of rolling, you may take an automatic strong hit. If you do, this asset counts as an impact and you no longer have this protection until you next reach a milestone on the background vow. So just in case this all goes really sideways, I do have some now official mechanical plot armor that's going to keep me alive. Let's see if we can keep other people alive in the process, though. So, Beowulf and Newton's Folly. They've reached orbit around Osolok. We've got our scans demonstrating that, yes, definitely, that's the fleet down below. They were in the process of refueling. As far as we know, that's what they're up to. There is brief counseling, because we know we've caught up with them now, so we can take a moment to strategize and figure out what's the plan here. We're up above. We could bombard them easily enough, but of course, they have the prisoners aboard, and we don't want to just blow up the ship. I think the first priority, though, is we don't know, in character anyway, we don't know which ship the prisoners are on. Because if we can identify that somehow, if we can just determine which one has them, then we could just attack all the other ones with like impunity. We wouldn't have to worry about that. The question is, how would we determine this? Oh, before we do that, though, I'd like to earn some momentum and I'd like to set a vignette, because we said the prisoners somehow were able to get any kind of ability to defend themselves, to get weaponry, to fight back. I want to know more about what does that look like? How did they do that? Not only do I want this for the momentum, but I really want to know because it might inform things coming up in this session. Now, I don't offhand know, like I don't have a lot of inspiration at the moment of what might they have done, because they were largely kept locked in a bare room, had cots and stuff. Maybe, like, are these just physical things they fashioned? Are they basically just fighting with shivs, like sharpened bedposts and stuff like that? Is possible. I'm going to roll on the oracles, though. I'm going to roll a descriptor and focus to get an idea of, like, what have they managed to use? Because it might also be that somebody smuggled something in. Let's find out. I have rolled Lost and Time. Ooh, those are some very compelling words. That does lead me to believe maybe there's like a cool device that got smuggled in. We talked about how in the room that was like a memorial to those who have been lost, there were all of those cryo chambers that did have people that weren't quite dead yet. And one of them had like the like ghost vapor stuff that would allow a person to go intangibly, based off stuff that is from the even beyond the Outlands, whatever that's called. I forget. The Expanse, I think. Anyhow, we know there was at least that there. I keep imagining with this that somehow they have a device that can, like, you know, it's like a time stop. It gives you just a few moments. It's like a one-time use thing. This is super powerful. But that, like, somebody in there has smuggled it in. Maybe it was a personal creation, perhaps something they've had for a very long time and never made especially public, but now it's a do or die. You know, everybody everybody in the room is starting to talk about how, like, they got word about how this is Archer Station. They overheard through conversation that happened when they were being given meals or something like that. They're going to Archer Rehabilitation Center. Everybody's been talking about how, like, they might as well be dead then. They're going to lose themselves. And if ever there's an opportunity to fight back, like, they need to do it before it's too late. And broadly speaking, people don't know what they can do. I think by this time, Vert, he got shot up and was quite wounded, but not dead. He's certainly not unconscious anymore. I think he is still recovering, but at least able to contribute to the conversation. And let's just say that Vert is the one who throws out there that, like, if we don't have any kind of weaponry, we're just going to be gunned down immediately. And he, like, gestures to his own wounds. We won't have enough time to do anything to their numbers. Something that gives us a moment, some kind of distraction or anything. And there's somebody in the room. Let's at this point, if they're going to have this cool of an item, let's give them a name. So call sign of Link. the hero we need. Ooh, and I see that Link is right next to Jester in the call sign list. I feel seen. The hero we need, Link, chimes in and she says, I think I have a way. And she reaches up to her hair and pulls out, in the tangle of it, there's kind of like a barrette in there, like a hair clip kind of thing that she's been able to tuck away and cover up. And on this hair clip is attached this like amber looking stone that has an inner glow inside. She holds it up to her face and says, I always knew that I'd only be able to use this the once, and I figured I'd be saving it for the moment that we actually get inside a vault, just to be able to prolong it all the more, in case we were on a ticking clock. This, and she holds it up a little bit higher for everybody to see, this stone, if I break it in my hand, it should give me about 1 minute of stopped time. With 1 minute, I'm sure I can get us some weapons. And there's general agreement around the room that, like, that could do it. Like, everybody, there's a lot of murmuring and everything. And Valkyrie, who is there, of course, kind of steps up to be the leader once more and says, then we need to make this official. Is everybody here willing to do their part? We're never going to have a chance unless all of us are doing this together. Stand tall and proud if you're willing to fight this final fight. To win. To seize this ship back and have our dignity once more. And all around the room, people quietly stand up, hold their chests high, one by one, until eventually everybody in the room, except Vert, who, like, physically can't. He's still, like, kind of slumped in the corner. He doesn't have it in him. But even he, like, muscles through and makes the effort to, like, he grabs onto bedposts and, like, pulls himself up and is just holding on the best that he can. But he is severely injured. But even he stands up to be like, I'll give it everything I can. But I think in this fight, I'm best served tending to the wounded. There are nods of agreement throughout. People start dividing and working on, like, getting anything that could be used as any kind of medical supply in the sense of, like, at least staunching bleeding and stuff, like collecting all the sheets together, providing something for Vert, and, like, everybody's kind of doing their last preparations and stuff. They determine that the next time that the door is open in order for them to have their meals, that's the moment. Link is going to break the stone, because that way the door will be open for them. She'll use her minute as best as possible to seize their weapons, take the ones from the people that are coming into the room, and any that are close by. Anything she can do inside of a minute. It'll at least give them a start. So there we go. That's how they were able to have their moment. Let's take our +1 momentum, and let's get back to the Beowulf and Newton's Folly. So they want to determine where the prisoners are. I guess the other thing they could do, I mean, they don't have to do that. Another option, we know that they've been waiting for the moment they have the device that can just make all the ships down there just, like, blast out their electricity to just fuck up and give quite a distraction. And I think, the question is, do they want to do that immediately, or do they want to wait for, like, once they're aware? Like, when is the best time? I think realistically we should probably start with that, because much as they want to know which ship the prisoners are on, I don't know how they would really determine that. I'm sure I could technobabble something about, like, what the sound waves they're able to pick up of the gunfire going on inside. But it's inside a pretty massive ship. Like, I don't know how much they can really get from orbit on that. I think that's That's probably unreasonable. They don't have any special device to be able to make that happen. At best, if Emile could, like, intercept their radio chatter or something, you could maybe hear them talking about it. Which that's at least possible, but I think we're just going to go with, let's set off the device. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to secure an advantage by, we're going to take in everything we can find out about these ships. We're going to observe them from orbit to determine what are the ships that we're trying to trigger here. We need exact model numbers and stuff, like the way this comlink connects to them and everything. We need to be able to have very specific ships that we're targeting, and it's not clear, like it's just kind of a list. It doesn't say like this one is this many miles away. Like we need to be able to get down to serial numbers and stuff. So we're taking flybys and stuff. We're zooming in as much as possible to get any identifying information about these ships that we can plug in and trigger the device. So this is a secure an advantage. It's going to be with wits. You could make an argument for this being gather information, but I think that would honestly be better suited for if we were determining which ship has the prisoners on it. And like, we as players already know the answer, so it's not really worth doing that either. Anyway, wits roll. We don't have a lot of momentum, just 3, so we probably can't rely on that at all. Let's do it. It's going to be one of those sessions. Okay, I rolled a 10 and an 8 on the challenge dice, so we start off with a miss. I'm glad I have that new fated ability. You fail or your assumptions betray you. Pay the price. Now, certainly the price on this is gotta involve, we gotta fill in a section on that clock. Like, we're wasting too much time doing it. And because we fail, it becomes clear that, like, we can't do it from this distance. I think we try and do it from orbit, and we assume that we'd be able to pick it up, but we're just too far away. In order to find this out, we would have to get in much closer. Close enough that they'd probably notice us. Like, right now, we have kind of the benefit of we're relatively stealthy because they're not paying attention to the skies, but we'd have to get in close enough that it would be impossible for them not to notice. But I think it's important enough that, I mean, they gotta do that. Meanwhile, the prisoners are doing the best they can. You know, it started off with them getting a few firearms, and then they were able to take out the people at the door, bring them their meal, and then they spread out from there to invade other rooms, and they're kind of like, they're sort of this rolling snowball of collecting more weapons. They get little bits here and there. The more they have, the more they pass out to the group, and I think they're just like, as a group, moving throughout the ship, trying to just take over one little bit at a time. That was kind of the preamble to all of this. But now it's at the point where they're, like, the ship is fully aware. All of the Imperium are coming in, like, they're ready. They're no longer surprised. They're firing back in force. And so while they are kind of advancing through on their way to the bridge, every once in a while, like, they lose some members along the way. And some of those people get dragged back to this station where Vert is hanging out, not in the room that has jets of flame ready to come from the walls. He's not in the incinerator room. They find a different area that they station as their kind of like their first aid tent. So every once in a while people are brought back to him, but like they're losing numbers, and that's what filling in that section is. So back to trying to set off the like electrical burst on all of them. I think I'm going to determine like he can't set it off until he has this information. He needs to know the serial numbers. But now, because he has to get in closer, this is no longer secure an advantage. This is something he'd have to do as a face danger, because he'd have to get in close enough. They gotta fly the ships in. You know, at this point, to set the scene, all of the ships that were aboard, that were inside, like, all the snub fighters are out. They're being piloted by people. Beowulf is there. Newton's Folly is there. I think the command, we're gonna do a face danger with Heart. Because this is a command. The Beowulf doesn't go in to fly in close. That would cause way too much, like, draw too much attention. He's commanding one of the snub fighters to do a flyby and collect that information for him. And so I'm going to do this as command because it's about those orders of taking over, like doing the right proper tactics. It's not about Emile's personal shadow and ability to stay hidden. So anyway, let's roll this with Heart. Even though the goal is still to remain hidden, like on a full success, maybe they can do this without being noticed because it's such a smaller ship. So anyway, let's roll this with Heart. It's a face danger. As I said, it's going to be one of those sessions. It's another miss. You fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. The challenge dice were a 5 and a 6, which is not too bad, but I didn't roll as well this time. So definitely, at the very least, the price is the prisoners are getting, they're being shot down more and more. And certainly, the other part of pay the price is that we're spotted. The Imperium is well aware of all of us, and they're going to start rallying their ships, the ones that are not the profit margin. They're now going to start flying up. They're big warships, the ones that were doing the bombarding before when they did Cinder. they're going to take off, get into orbit so they can start fighting our ship-to-ship battles. That's going to begin. I think indeed as a result of that, like the pay the price should be, we've got to enter combat now, I think. Like they are going to bring it to us. So we're entering the fray as we're also running out of time. Let's make a challenge track here. So what is the objective? Because our objective isn't like, sure, we're trying to fend off these people that are fighting us, but the real objective is to, well, there's a few. This might be a good time to have multiple objectives of different ranks. Because one of them is just find out where the prisoners are. Another one could just be identify the ship serial numbers, because we can easily fuck them up if we can just identify what their ships are. So let's make one progress track for identifying the ships. I don't think that's going to be hard at all. That should definitely just be a troublesome objective. They're getting closer to us. We're going to be a bit distracted, but that shouldn't be too bad. That's troublesome. That one is not going to be made artificially higher just because we have fewer ships at our disposal due to having to leave some behind last time. However, another progress track, another objective that we should have is identify location of prisoners. I think that one is going to be at least, I think that one's dangerous. Largely because we don't have a lot of great ideas on how exactly we're able to do that. Again, it's going to be about intercepting radio chatter and stuff. And putting together, like, there's a reason why only 2 of the 3 ships are coming to face us. If we can figure that out, if we can read their tactics, maybe we can find out, like, hold on, what's going on that ship? Why is it not joining us? So that's probably our new way to figure that out. And then, much as I would make a progress track for just, like, rescuing the prisoners, I mean, we already have that as a vow. That would be kind of overlapping. We could make one for just blowing up these ships. We don't have to necessarily go for it. Like, we don't have to get every single objective. So let's just do that. And that one is definitely going to be, like, these are big, beefy ships that are meant for combat, and they're government issue, and we don't have quite the numbers that we would have. I think this one is going to be, I think if we had everybody, it would have been, we're just going to do one that's troublesome, one that's dangerous, and one that's formidable. Because I do think with our big warships, like, we'd be a pretty even match for them if we had our whole complement, but we don't. Because we know they're kind of short snub fighters as well, what with, the ones that we have being theirs. So I'm going to say something that would have been dangerous is becoming formidable. And that is just disable the Imperium warships. I think that's the other reason why it's only this level of difficulty. We don't need them to be destroyed. We just need them to be disabled. All right. I've never had 3 objectives running in a combat like this, but I think they're kind of important ones. I'll be honest, I wish I had something a little bit more interesting and specific than just disabling the warships for like a more combat-focused one. But we've got our other things to do. And again, we don't necessarily have to, like, that's an objective that I could totally just give up on. We could face defeat on that, abandon that objective. That would be fine. And we might get new ones as time goes on. Anyway, we need to see if we're in control. So I'm looking through these options, and I want to find the one that seems the most fitting. Are we on the move? That's edge. Are we facing off against our foe? That's heart. Maybe. What I don't love about that, I'll get back to. Are we preparing to act against an unaware foe? No, they're specifically not unaware. They've noticed us. It's not shadow. Caught in a trap or sizing up the situation, that's wits. I'm between heart and wits on this. And I'm going to give myself the wits, and here's why. We do have time to size up the situation because while they are aware of us, they got to get all the way to orbit. Like, we're watching their ships the whole time. Their ships just aren't that fast. They got to get up off the ground, get into orbit, get into space, then they can start attacking us. We got all the time in the world while they're doing that to make a plan and, like, figure out what is the best way to make use of this situation. And so I think that's the tiebreaker between heart and wits. We're not just, like, right up in each other's face already. So I'm going to say wits. I think that's actually not the most, like, I've been kinder to myself in moments. I've had some more bullshit calls. I think that one's actually pretty reasonable. So, okay, rolling with wits. We're entering the fray. And here we go. Okay, I am so glad that I said wits, not heart. So here's what happened. The dice gave me 2 4s, and I rolled a 5. So if that had been hard, if I had had one less on that, this would have gone from a strong hit with a match to a miss with a match. Very different beginning to this combat. I feel like one leads to a much more problematic start. So anyway, strong hit with a match. Not a huge match, but a match nonetheless. We're talking about a double 4. And of course, let's start off with what we get from Enter the Fray. So it's a strong hit. We get to do both 2 momentum, bringing us up to 5. And importantly, we're in control. That one's huge. Now, we've got a double 4 match. So I think what I'm going to do on that, like, what do we find out? Let's make progress on identifying the Imperium ships. Like, which one is which serial number and everything. Like, we have time now as they're getting closer and closer to kind of zoom in, see any markings that we can find, start plugging them in. We're not all the way there. Maybe we've gotten, like, one of them, but not all of them. We still have our ship that's on the ground that's, like, doing flybys, trying to do what it can while avoiding some of the laser fire and stuff. Like, it's a little bit more in the mix. It's like radioing back to us all the descriptions we need to start figuring out, like, okay, due to this, it would have this kind of prefix. Like, to be clear about this whole, like, having to identify the ship before we can do the, like, explosion of electricity thing, the way I see it is there's no, like, long list. We couldn't just, like, select all and say, every single Imperium ship gets a big explosion. I think in order for this to work, we have to just offhand know a specific number to put in there. And so I think what this represents and why it's not just one move, why we're only getting one bit of progress on it, is like we're getting the specifications that we can find about, like, you know, how many engines does it have? Like, it's getting down to a model number, right? Like, where are its exact engine placements and where does it have hard points? Any information like that is getting relayed back to us. But I'm still not quite at a, like, distinct model number to put in yet. That's going to still require, like, looking up, figuring out more about, like, okay, what is the formatting on that? How do we put it in? And so that's my long way of saying, you know, we could get off to a great start here if we could just make them all fucked up, like set off the electricity burst. If we can just finish up this identification process, we can make quite a move that would really screw them up. Now, the only other thing that comes to mind is we're in control here, and we do have heavy cannons. Like, if we chose to strike right now, while they're still kind of coming up in the air, like they're getting here, they're getting into orbit, we got a good opportunity to actually strike, and we could do either a focus fire or just get our +1 to it by doing a strafing run. +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. Of course, those would be going towards our goals of, like, trying to, like, disable the ships if we were just trying to shoot at them. Whereas I think, do I have faith that we can stay in control? Like, how long do we have that? Do I need to just strike while the iron's hot, quite literally? Or do I expect that I can gain ground here? You know what? On gain ground, even on a weak hit, we stay in control. And considering my next gain ground thing is going to be a wit-based thing, this is going to be Emile, like, looking through everything that he's got on his computer, anything downloaded, specifications, like, how does the Imperium structure their model numbers? It's researching through his computer, trying to pull that up as quickly as possible. And while I don't think this qualifies for my tech asset, I don't think I'm really optimizing, hacking, disrupting, configuring an electronic system. It's not that, I'm just using one. I won't get the +1 from it, but this will be a wits move. So why don't we do that? Let's gain ground with wits and see if we can get the next bit of information to be able to get the model number so we can just make all of these ships just go. I mean, I guess it won't technically, like, disable them inherently. That's its own progress bar, but it'll give them a lot of problems to contend with. So anyhow, let's do a gain ground with wits. I'm so scared that I'm going to lose my one opportunity to use these heavy cannons, but I'm sticking with it. Wits, we have 5 momentum, which is unlikely to help us considering the minimum we're going to roll here is a 4. But I guess it could happen. If we only meet. Okay, we did only get a weak hit. The dice were relatively kind. It was against a 4 and a 5, but we only rolled a 5. That wasn't our best one. If I had justified the tech asset, we would have gotten a strong hit. But that's okay. We stay in control, which is the most important thing. So we can take the progress, we can take 2 momentum, or we can take 1 on our next move, which is not a progress move. I think the whole point of this, get that progress now, I want to try and finish off that first objective where we've got the ships identified. We're ready to be able to just disable them through the means of this thing that we've brought to the battle, our secret weapon. So I'm going to take the progress. Now we're up to 6. That's decent odds if we want to just take decisive action and say, like, we got the information we need. We think we have the serial numbers. Like, I think at this point, the difference on having the more complete progress is we're making some educated guesses here, right? Like, it could be one of several things, but we're, like, filling in the gaps by, like, this is what it should be versus we know definitively, yes, we have looked it up. This is a match. There's definitely these ships. Or at least it's more in that direction. Let's see, what happens if we get only a weak hit on take decisive action? Because that's reasonably likely on 6 progress. We would have a table to have to roll on, or choose one, which would either be, like, there'd be a suffer move, short-lived victory, collateral damage, others pay the price, others won't forget. Okay, it's not that bad. I think I'm going to... I want to keep this momentum hot. Not in a game mechanic sense, but let's take decisive action now. Actually, I've changed my mind. I think, they're starting to come out of atmosphere. They're getting closer. Like, this is one of our last moments to have them, like, at a nice range where we've kind of got them at a disadvantage. These ships are still rising up. They can't quite target us very well because of just the angles. Whereas I can aim my cannons downward and just, like, fire on one of them while they're coming up. I think we should just use this opportunity while they're still definitely at range. I'm going to do a strafing run where just kind of from up above, firing cannons on these ships down below. So I'm going to get to add +1 to this. It's still going to be, they're far enough, it's an edge move. Add +1, take 1 momentum on a hit. We're doing a full strike on them. Let's see if we can just really pop onto just disabling these ships. I think we're still kind of working out some of the details, like the computer is working in the background. We're not quite ready to definitively say, it's these ships. And so in the meantime, Emile is given these commands to move along and do, and maybe even some of it is Bash. Like, Bash is probably suggesting that this is what we do. God, I kind of wish I had made a connection with Bash so that I could get his, like, military leadership bonuses on things. He'd be helping out a lot here, mechanically. That was a real missed opportunity. I should have just taken the time to make a connection with him. Everything he's good at would be relative in this battle, but it's too late now. Anyhow, strike. It's an edge with a +1. We get 1 momentum on a hit. Let's see what we can pull off here. Strong hit. Strong hit. The dice were a 6 and a 4, but I rolled a 6 on mine. I don't even need that +1, so we get a full strong hit, so we're going to get 1 momentum from the text of heavy cannons. And importantly, we get to mark progress twice, dominating the foe and staying in control. They're trying to get up into orbit into a range where they can start attacking us. These are their big warships that, like, if they get into range, they've got some heavy armaments of their own. They're just not quite there yet. The more that we can keep them from getting up in our grill, the better. We need to seize this opportunity. And I think the idea is, like, the reason we start this is we know we're not going to blow up the ships or anything, but we're going to give them some problems that, combined with the electrical explosion, should hopefully get them towards just, they got way too many problems to deal with to effectively fight. So that's 2 progress on disabling the Imperium warships, which is only 2 boxes because that is formidable. These are beefy things. Those cannons are nice, but these can take a beating. Thankfully, we're up to 6 momentum now, and I think I'm going to use that opportunity. Let's try and ride this momentum here. I want to finish identifying the ships so that we can disable them. Let's kind of roll one thing into the other. So we're going to try and gain ground here, and I am going to do everything I can to make this as good as possible. I'm going to say the reason that we're making progress on this is my computer is running through lots and lots of possibilities, trying to determine, like, it's getting to a smaller and smaller set of what the serial numbers would be. What this move is I'm going to try and optimize that process. I plug my computer into the ship's computer and reroute some resources. Like, there is computational power on this ship that is not currently being used because it's usually part of, like, the jump calculation or something like that. And so Emile knows he can utilize that because it's going to waste right now. And if he routes some of that, getting kind of a multi-core process so that multiple computers are working on this at the same time, and that's a sophisticated computer to be able to make jump calculations. He's setting it up to work in tandem so that he can eliminate these possibilities as quickly as he can. get it down to it's gotta be these. So there's my justification for why this will be a wits move, and with a +1, and using my tech asset, so on a weak hit, I can press my luck and reroll it. I'm trying to take as few chances as possible. I want this to go well, god damn it. Alright, gain ground, wits with a +1. Oh, hell yeah. I got a 10 versus a 7 and a 2. Strong hit. The challenge dice tried to play here, at least on one of them, tried to keep me to a weak hit, and I said, no, that's not happening. So we stay in control, and we get two things. Mark progress is definitely going to be one of them. That was like the whole point of this. That brings us up to 9. We've got solid leads on this. Like, we're near certain we have it's this ship and this ship and this ship. These are the ones we're facing. 99% certain. The other option, take 2 momentum or 1 on my next move, which would be the next move after the progress move I'm about to make. Well, we could get ourselves to 8 momentum, which would be a lot of protection at this point. I think I'm going to do that. I think that's better than a 1 on my next move. 8 momentum is like a blanket +1 on my next move for whenever I need it. You know, we don't know when we're going to just have real problems. This is just better insurance. So I've made my 2 choices. It's time to take decisive action, and in this case, it's very clear. I guess I was thinking in my head the decisive action would be we set off the device, but that's really more us trying to make progress on disabling the Imperium warships. What would be the decisive thing we do that makes it clear, like, yep, we have locked in, these are the ships? I guess it could just be, like, the decisive action is Emile stops the program. But what's weird about this is, like, the only way we would know for sure is once we do the thing. Maybe, okay, let's imagine this, like, the app that he's got on the comlink, the stolen comlink from Concord. Maybe there's a way you can, like, punch it in and it'll validate, like once you put one in, if it's correct, it will, like, show up and verify, like, this distance away. Like, there's a thing that lets you know whether or not you put in a valid entry. Let's say like that. That way we can make sense of how we're going to know whether this is a strong hit or not when we take decisive action. So the decisive action is indeed, we've narrowed it down to 3 serial numbers and we type them into the app. We're finding out, are these legit? 9 progress, making a progress roll. Okay, I did get a 10 on one of those dice, so it is a weak hit. And incidentally, it would have been a weak hit had I done this with 6 progress. It was a 10 and a 4. You achieve your objective. So it's as I said before, I got to choose one of these results on the table, or I can roll one, but I think I'd like to choose one. What makes sense here? Victory is short-lived, a new peril or foe appears. It certainly could be that. You know, we're having a really easy time right now. I could see adding some complexity to this. I'll keep that one in mind. You face collateral damage, something is lost, damaged, or broken. I'd have to justify that. Like, what would make that make sense? Like, how would we have lost something? Because we're so in control right now. I'd need to come up with a good idea, and I don't have one offhand. It's not to say we can't come up with one. Others pay the price, someone else suffers the cost. I mean, that one would be really easy, which is just, we advance the prisoners being wiped out in the firefight down below, because we're spending all this time up here, and we're not going down to rescue them just yet. That one makes the most immediate sense to me so far. I hate that would put us all the way at 3 out of 4 already, implying, like, so many people have been lost. Others won't forget you are marked for vengeance. That could be a thing if, like, somehow they're aware that we're using this app, but, like, we're clearly already at war with each other in a sense, so that feels kind of like a nothing burger. Or it gets complicated. The true nature of a foe or objective is revealed. I kind of like that, if we could add some other complication to this. I'm going to choose that. I think the complication is twofold. First off, we can only do one ship at a time. This app can. I know that previously it had the Imperium trigger, like all of them at once, but they may have had like a better version of this program or something. This version, the way Emile has it, he can only set off one at once. So he can only get the drop on them once. The others might be able to, like, prepare for it. The second complication is this comlink, it doesn't inherently have great range. Like, as is, there's no way to send that signal well. Oh, no, I got it. Okay. This is fantastic. It's definitely complicated. Take out the it can only be one at a time thing. I'm replacing it with this. When we connect, we see that A verification that those are ships, but all three of them show themselves as offline at the moment. The only way to get the signal to them anywhere in the galaxy is about connecting to the sector net. And apparently they have done some amount of anticipation on this, or they have other problems for whatever reason. They're offline. They can't currently get that signal via sector net. Which means there are a couple of options. One, somehow board the ships and force them to connect to the sector net. That seems difficult, but maybe possible. Probably not the best go. The second option is just you have to send the signal not via sector net, but through close proximity. You just gotta be close enough to the ship when you do it that you risk the electricity might come out and hit our ship. It's going to be a risk to set this off. Our ship isn't going to have the big device go off or anything like that, but we're going to have to fly really close in order to make this work. There's the complication to it. But we have successfully identified them. So that objective is seized. We can now work on trying to disable them, or again, if we can figure out the location of the prisoners, we might be able to ignore them a little bit. I have to hope they can hold out a little bit longer, because it seems much as I want to have them figure out where the prisoners are, go down there and try and rescue them, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do that while we'd have to go down onto the planet, opening ourselves up to be below all these ships that are meant to bombard you. That just seems like a terrible idea. And I think tactically Bash would not be about that. Even if they've got a bit of an inkling that hey, the one ship that's not coming, maybe there's something weird about that. Maybe the prisoners are on that, or maybe they're on all of them. I guess we don't really know right now, because from our perspective, the ship we see down there, it's not a combat ship. We know it's an Imperium ship, but we know its primary purpose is to harness energy. Why would it be joining this combat? I think we could make that jump that okay, so if it's not a combat ship, it must be about transport. Why else is it in this fleet? But we don't know for sure. So for now, the priority is definitely, we got to disable these ships, then we'll have time to maybe figure this out a little bit more. So all right, all of that established. Let's try and gain ground here. I think I'm going to lean into one of the other wits options on here, coordinating a plan. I'm in contact with Bash. He's a real combat guy. We are two ships. Maybe we can try and work one of these ships, trick them into getting flanked by us, or having Bash kind of lure them in a certain direction so that the Beowulf can come up from behind and set off the device. Maybe, okay, so here's the thing. We want to find a way to get them close together, which is definitely going to involve some trickery because they're naturally going to want to try and flank us, right? So I think we determined that the best delivery device for the blast, ideally hitting both ships at once, would be a snub fighter. They're so much more fast and agile than just these big honking ships. We could do quite the flyby with them. With the idea being that a snub fighter would be fast enough that it wouldn't have to get caught up in the blast when it goes out. One of our main ships would probably also get hit by that blast because it would just not be able to get out of the way quick enough. But a snub fighter could just fly in and out, trigger it, and be gone before the blast gets to them. So, I'm not saying that I don't think Emile would be inside one of those, but maybe, he's got it all set up. This is all happening over, this is not moment to moment. This battle is kind of a long process. They get to the point where they're okay, this is the payload. He makes it clear to one of the pilots, we're going to try and get them corralled together, maybe by having one of the ships act as bait or something. Because if we can, kind of lure it into, they're going to want to flank one of the ships, that'll get them, kind of close together. Maybe. I'm trying to think, how could you get them corralled together? Maybe I'm overthinking this, and I don't need to be specific. I don't know the best way they would pull this off, but Bash and Emile come up with a plan to, using clever maneuvering, lure the ships to get to a point, or at least they're trying to do this, lure the ships so that they're closer together than they might otherwise be, opening them up to have a flyby with a snub fighter with the payload that would be able to just disable them all in one. So the progress on this would be successfully getting them to kind of get closer together, setting up that maneuver. So let's do that. We're gaining ground, we're using wits here, definitely not benefiting from my tech asset or anything. That doesn't make any sense. But I think it's still the right call. I mean, I'm definitely torn between this and just striking them again while we're in control. Just try and mark a lot of progress. God, that would be a good call. But I think I'm just doing gain ground here. It's what I said. Let's try and corral them together through just clever tactics. This is wits. There's no +1 on this. Let's see how we go. We got 8 momentum. Hopefully we don't need to use it, but it's a little bit of a shield. And we will not need it because those challenge dice came up 2 and 3. It's another strong hit. So again, we get to mark progress on trying to disable the ship. So that's up to 3 boxes. And now I'm not going to take 2 momentum because I max out at 9. It would be a waste. So now I might as well get the +1 on the next move. What this means is successfully, we coordinate this plan. We get them to get we thread that needle where they're getting closer and closer together, but not so close that it stands out as like they're onto us. We're like, it's slowly happening. They've not been made aware yet that this is a weird positioning. But this definitely sets up for, again, now I need to do the distraction. I need to give covering fire with a strafing run in order to make sure that the ship that has the payload can get in there unnoticed. Like, we need to give them bigger problems. Otherwise, if they focus fire on our one ship, which is, it's probably not just the one, there's probably a swarm of whatever fighters we have left, they're giving it cover. But still, if it blows that up, then we're fucked. At least that particular plan is fucked. So I need to give them bigger problems to deal with, and that calls for heavy cannonry. I'm firing it in a way to try and like divert their attention and give like covering fire. It's like going around where the ships are so that like they can't really pay as much attention to our snub fighters. I think Bash has been like key to this. Like he really knows how to execute these kind of plans, like military tactics well. You know, like this is where he shines. So we get a +1 on this. I'm still going to declare this edge because I don't think they've gotten like right up in our face for it to be iron. Beowulf is still able to maintain a distance. Maybe Newton's folly is a little bit up close and personal with them, and like its missiles aren't quite as effective. And that's like, maybe that was the lure. They're like, they get in close enough that Newton's folly's missiles, like they don't have time to prime, or they just be a problem. And so Newton's folly can't actually attack that well, but that was the bait that got them to get in too close together. So now I'm doing a strafing run once again, just trying to blast both of them, give the covering fire to our snub fighter. Let's see if we can make this all happen. So I get a +1 from the strafing run, a +1 from the move that we just made. This is edge with a +2, and we get 1 momentum on a hit. Okay, it's only a weak hit, because one of the challenge dice was a 9. But still, we mark progress twice, but you expose yourself to danger. You are in a bad spot. Okay. This is a big deal. It's bad to be in a bad spot. I'm glad I have this much momentum first. But okay. Our momentum is up to 9. Our progress on disabling the ships is up to 5. But now we're in a bad spot. So what made that happen? I think I'm going to say, like, at the last minute, before we can pull off the plan, before they're close enough to actually trigger it, they're on to something. All of their weaponry starts focusing on the snub fighters. They realize, wait a minute, the warships aren't the problem. Why are they sending in the snub fighters? There's something with them. There's some trick going on here. And they start trying to focus fire on those. We need to do something to avoid them just being blasted away. Because these ships aren't officially, like, we don't have assets for them or anything. They're just incidental ships. They've got, like, no plot armor whatsoever. They could be destroyed in a move. So in reacting under fire, the first thing that came to mind is like just getting in the way and blocking them with my ship, getting up close and personal and making it so that they can't make the shot, which would be an iron move, which would be a terrible idea. I mean, I could try and rely on momentum, but I don't want to get caught up in the react under fire bad spot spiral. It can get bad times really quickly. So is there any way I can I come up with something that makes sense for a better move? I'm certainly not doing edge. Like, edge is about taking cover. That's not what's happening here at all. They're not even firing at my ship. I mean, I could maybe justify heart by issuing the commands like, you're almost, like, basically communicating over the radio, like, you're almost there, you're almost there. If you can set this off, they're not going to be able to blast at you, making sure that the fighters don't break away, that they stay vigilant, that they stay strong, they stick to the plan, that they don't panic. that like ensure them that like their weaponry takes time to charge up. You're faster. They're going to have a hard time targeting you. Like, don't be afraid. Just stick to the plan. Like, I could maybe do something like that, which is remaining stalwart against fear or temptation. Yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's about not trying to change things up at the last second, but just being like, it's going to work. Have faith. You're almost there. Set off the bomb, functionally. All right, I'm going to go with that. It's better than iron. We're making this as a heart move. Emile assures everybody it'll be okay for hardly the first time. Okay, it's a weak hit, which in React Under Fire is not enough. You avoid the worst of the... And the top die was a 10, so I can't cancel it with momentum. You avoid the worst of the danger or overcome the obstacle, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move -1, you stay in a bad spot, and of course we've not made any progress. The worst of the danger is that would be them blowing up the ship that has the device on it. That hasn't happened. We've probably lost some of the ships. Here's what I'm going to do. The suffer move -1, I'm going to say that this is going to fill in the Beowulf mutiny clock a little bit. Because some of the other fighters that were crew members of the Beowulf, they did die. Some of them have gotten targeted, they've blown up, just not the ship that needs to stay there. You know, the runner with the torch who's trying to get there to the bomb to blow up the wall at Helm's Deep, he's still there. Some of the other orcs have gone down, and I'm sure the mutiny clock would go up even higher if they knew I referred to them as orcs. But people are more upset because, again, Emile was the one that's like, don't change a thing, just keep going, and people have died as a result. May have been the right call, and we're still in a bad spot. Like, they're now just picking off the ships. Is there anything we can do? In theory, I could take decisive action even in a bad spot. The only thing is, even a strong hit would be a weak hit. A weak hit would be a miss. We could maybe do that and just hope our momentum carries us, because we got a lot of momentum. I gotta think on that. This is a tough call. Because a weak hit would mean... we achieve our objective, but not without costs, right? It would be that thing. I'd love to get it with an actual strong hit. I want to just have these things disabled. So I think I have to have faith that we can get out of this bad spot. Get back into in control before we take decisive action. Hopefully without even using the momentum along the way, but we'll probably have to. Okay, so what do we do now? I don't want to have Emile just do the same thing of just say, hold. Like, let's not do the same thing twice. Can we cleverly bypass this obstacle with wits somehow? Is there any way that I can justify that? Okay, I got it. Here's my best, like, this is clever, kind of. We're going to give this ship some additional cover, and the way we're going to do it, Newton's folly, their missiles aren't working because they're too close. They can't be effective at this range. But we decide what we'll do instead, maybe the snub fighter is coming from, like, the Newton's folly side anyway. Fire those missiles in the path of the ship that's getting there so that there's just chaff in the way. Stuff that would block the, like, laser fire from the warships. We just launch a huge volley of missiles to just make a whole field of covering fire of inactive missiles, basically. It's probably going to make a lot of explosions that this snub fighter is going to have to fly around, but it won't be directly targeted. And it may be harder to target. Like, we indeed use it in a way that it's hard for their targeting system to pick up on the ship. So we're making a field of chaff, basically. I think that's fun and clever. We fire a bunch of inactive missiles. It allows me to use wits. It's a big aha moment. So we're going to react under fire with wits, fire all these missiles, and we get... Again, I keep rolling. One of my dice is always a 10. I rolled a weak hit. One of the dice was a 10, one of them was a 1, and I only rolled a 1. I mean, doesn't matter. You can't beat the 10 anyway. So it's the same thing. We avoid the worst of the danger or overcome the obstacle, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move -1, and you stay in a bad spot. I'm not going to again make the Beowulf mutiny go up. It's not that. This was a good idea, and it mostly worked. Again, the ship with the device is still up there. It's okay, but there's a suffer move -1 that has to happen here. And I think maybe it should just be to, like, ship integrity. Like maybe they start fire because they can't target at that ship. They start, like, some of the volleying fire just goes to us instead. The Beowulf gets hit as it's getting closer, because all of this is happening while Emile is getting the ship closer, just in case we need to pivot and do something different. I think we just get a slight graze and the integrity goes down. So we only have 1 integrity to begin with. We suffer a -1, meaning we're going to have to make the suffer move. We're going to have to roll it. All right, so rolling integrity, it's a +0. We get... Okay. I rolled a 6, and it's 2 6s here. Here's the question. Right now it's a miss of the match, which is pretty awful. Pretty high match at that. Or I burn all this momentum and make it a strong hit with a match. Do I want to do that on this move, or do I just take the damage? Now, on a strong hit with a match, we'd be able to take the integrity back. The other option is taking 1 momentum, which I guess we could get it. We'd have room to get some back, because I'll have to burn it to get that result. And then, of course, we'll get the result of having a double 6 match, which is pretty good. And I can say that's whatever I want. No, okay, I got it. I'm going to leverage this opportunity, the double 6 match. I'm going to use the entirety of that just to get out of being in a bad spot. We're going to regain control. So I burn all of this momentum. I'm down to +1 right now. I'm going to, again, I could either take the integrity back or take the 1 momentum. I'm going to take the integrity back. Either way, we're going to have dog shit momentum that can't help us, so I'm not worrying about that right now. And then, yeah, we have double 6, which I think is high enough to justify that we've taken control. And the reason why is the ship has indeed, the snub fighter that has the device is now close enough. It's ready to actually, it can prime and activate the device. It can indeed do its flyby to try and just disable these things. Now, admittedly, that sounds a lot like taking decisive action to me. Let me rewrite that slightly, because I don't want to make that move yet. I really want that to be what happens when we take decisive action. I do want a little bit more progress first, though, and I think we could still just pepper it with some fire, weaken them a little bit so that when that blast happens, it is what makes the difference. It just takes them out. I think the reason we're in control is the ship is now close enough that it's inside the firing arc, it's in a bad range for the weapons that were really targeting it before. It flies in an area around one of the ships where the turrets on it can't really target it well, and the other ship is kind of on the other side of it. It's in a relatively safe zone right now where it can't be targeted. And so the window is now open for Emile to once again try and just use his heavy cannons to just weaken these ships as much as possible to prime them for the electrical burst, so that they're hopefully just fully disabled when that happens. We're again going to do this as a strafing run. So it's going to be edge with a +1, where we take 1 momentum on a hit. Here's the only thing that I want to consider. If I get close enough to make it an iron, which would be counteract, we could have, edge with a +1 or iron with a +1, which is basically edge without the +1. If I got in close enough that when I'd have to use iron, the reason why I would is then I could justify that when we set off the device that makes a big electrical burst, simultaneously maybe Emile could from the Beowulf also try and blast them with his EMP, give them just everything all at once, which would allow me to use my Firebrand ability to add +2 to that. Oh, you know what? That wouldn't make any sense, because the whole point is we want to do this as a taking decisive action. It wouldn't be a move that we could get +2 on anyway, so never mind. Let's do this at edge of the +1. We're striking. This is a little dangerous, though, because again, strike is more likely to send us back into a bad spot. If we just try and gain ground, we'd be okay, even on a weak hit. On strike, we're not. So I'm a little bit worried about this. We don't have momentum to fall back on anymore. No, you know what? I've talked myself out of it. I want to keep the chances that we stay in control as high as possible. I'd love to strike, but I'm too afraid of getting caught in that spiral. I think instead I'm going to do gain ground as an edge move, because this is all about maneuvering, getting the final placement where the 2 ships that we need to disable are in range of each other so that we could hit them simultaneously with the burst, so that we need to maneuver the snub fighter to get between them where it can do that in a flyby. All the pieces have to be put into place just so, and they're close, but not quite there. So I think what this looks like is both Beowulf and Newton's Folly start closing in closer and closer, kind of pressing in from either side so that those ships, trying to maintain a proper range so that their weapons are good, they keep kind of getting a little bit closer together, a little bit just very subtly. I don't think we have to get them to move too much, but just enough. And so we slowly start encroaching in order to make that happen. It's all the maneuvering. So it's a gain ground with edge. Okay, and I'm glad I did that, because this is a weak hit. Actually, it occurs to me, had this been edge with a +1, it would have been a strong hit anyway. I would have been fine. I got an 8 versus an 8 and a 7. Whatever, I made my choice. We stay in control, and then we can either mark progress, take 2 momentum, or add a +1 to the next move. I mean, if I take the +1 to the cannons, then I'm like, it's near certain I'll be able to... I'd have to edge with a +2 on that. I mean, I shouldn't use the word near certain. The dice can fuck me at any point. Should I just take the progress while I can get it? The answer is probably, yeah. Let's do that. So, alright, I'm up to 6 progress. We could take decisive action now, set off the device while we're still in control. I'd love to get even just like 1 more progress, though. Maybe this is the time for just that last little bit of cannonry. God, it's a push my luck thing. Do I go for it or not? I could focus fire. I'd be accepting that I'm losing momentum, but my momentum's not great right now anyway. And then I had mark progress on a hit, which means I could get up to 3 progress. Really set us up for disabling that. I'm going to do that. I'm terrified of it. I think we're going to totally get in a bad spot, but we have these heavy cannons. Let's use them. I focus fire on the close ship, weakening it as much as possible, giving just that last little bit of distraction while we're... Like, this is the last thing we're going to do before we set off the device. There's just, like, nothing left. Hopefully. I mean, maybe if we're in a bad spot, we can't. But I focus fire, meaning we're just making an edge move. We don't get the +1 this time. But we can maybe get up to 3 progress. So. Striking with edge. Come on. Treat me nice, dice. Okay, it's a weak hit, which means we do get the 3 progress, but we're in a bad spot, so it's both things. We also have to lose the momentum as we go all out, just weakening them, making sure that when the device goes off, they are most primed to be just utterly taken out by the electrical burst. But that means we are up to 9 progress on disabling the Imperium warships. Now, I could take decisive action now, we'd just be accepting that without a match, I can't possibly get a strong hit on it. Best we can get is a weak hit. Now, we're very likely, with 9 progress, we're very likely to be okay on that. But if I've got any chance to get out of the bad spot, we could have this not come with a cost. Granting that, again, we would choose what the cost is, and it might not be that bad. Something would just be lost, damaged, or broken is probably the one I'd be taking. The problem is, if we get a weak hit, which is still decently likely, like if either die is a 9 or a 10, which is, 2 sides of each of the dice we're throwing could do that. If we get a weak hit, it's a full miss. And then all of this work to disable them just goes down the toilet. I think much as I want to seize it right now, I've got to get in a good spot first, somehow. So here's the important question. What changes that makes this a bad spot? I think that in order to set off the device, the ship that has the payload has to expose itself completely. It's got to fly up between these 2 ships. There's just open space between where there's just nothing, and our ships aren't there. Like, we can't really do anything to stop their fire. They're in the way. We've corralled them together and now made a space where we can't give any covering fire. We can't protect this one ship. And as it flies up, like, they're anticipating it. All of their weapons, all their turrets target in on this one ship. They're priming up. They're getting ready to fire. They seem to have figured out there's something. They've identified the specific ship. They're ignoring all of the other ones. They have targeted the correct one now. And they are blasting everything at it as it's trying to just, like, dodge out of the way. I think here's what we're going to do. Emile is going to indeed bring the Beowulf really close in. Close enough, like, he has them fly it. He's going to get to the outside. He's been, like, hustling. He's put on a spacesuit, and it's got, like... It's one of the ones that has, like, magnetic boots or something. Something that'll attach him to the outside of the ship. He's wearing his phase shifter so that he can just go straight through the side... attach himself to the ship on the outside. He's in a spacesuit. He's on the Beowulf. As it flies close enough, he's going to try and EMP the ship. To just it'll just be a moment. We know the Imperium will be able to reset their systems. But if he can give even a moment where only one of the ships is firing at this one that has the payload, that'll increase its odds so much. So, we have to fly in close, which it's close on the scale of the Beowulf, but considering Emile is the one firing this EMP, it's still at a pretty long range. And he's moving around and like being jostled as this ship is, like it's hard to aim while riding on this thing that's moving around. So I'm going to let him do this with edge instead of iron, because for Emile it's still ranged. He's clinging to the outside of the ship through magnetism, reaches his hand out, focuses as much as he can, and tries to just blast this one ship with EMP. So we're going to take 1 from our firebrand. We're going to get to add 2 to this. This is edge with a +2 as we react under fire, trying to save this ship from being blown up. The ship with the payload. Importantly, trying to get back into a good spot. Or in control, I suppose. Okay, we only get a weak hit, because one of the dice was a 10. I got a 7, but I can't overcome a 10. Importantly, had we tried to take decisive action, that would have been a weak hit that turned into a miss, so I'm glad we pivoted. So it's the same as usual. We avoid the worst of it. You know, we're able to buy this ship a moment. It doesn't get blown up, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move -1, and we stay in a bad spot. So what do I lose? I certainly could lose the last of my EMP. Like, I've got 1 left. In theory, I could charge it up again. I could say that that just took everything and just suffer it to that. Be like, I've got nothing left. I can't just keep EMPing this. But I don't want to do that. I think the EMP is my best shot at getting out of this bad spot. Once I don't like doing the same move twice, I think that's the best call. So what do we lose it from instead? I mean, we could easily do the lose integrity on the Beowulf again. Like, it's got to get close enough. It's going to get shot at as some of the weapons that are on this side of the warship start firing at, like, around him. Oh god, it could even, like, hit near Emile. Almost, like, inadvertently. No, that'll be the bad spot that we react to next. Okay. The ship gets hit, taking -1 to integrity, which means I have to roll against it. I gotta withstand damage. So we roll that, and we get... Okay, it's a miss, which is not too surprising, you know, with a +0. It was more surprising that we got a strong hit last time. Or, well, I guess not surprising. We burned momentum to make that happen. So on a miss, we got to suffer an additional -1 integrity, which we can't, so we lose 1 momentum. And we have to suffer an additional cost. Either this ship is battered or cursed, we mark a module as broken, destroy a broken module by discarding it, or roll on the table below. I am going to... Again, tactically, I'm going to choose a thing that's not likely to come up right now. I'm going to say that our workshop module is offline. It can't be used. There's a fire that breaks out in there or whatever, and our fire suppression system is working on it, but we can't use it at the moment. The workshop is offline. It's broken, we gotta fix it up. Oh no, whatever will I do? It's not like I can... It doesn't even help me on repairing under fire, only in the field. Our workshop, no, it's broken. He. Valid option. So as I mentioned, as the fire keeps coming in, as it keeps blasting at the Beowulf, some of it is incidentally getting kind of close to Emile. And so I think he has to react under fire with edge just to dodge some of that stuff to not get hit himself. Yeah, much as I'd love to justify using the EMP again, I think this just makes the most sense. I like the idea that some of it is like, it's not aimed at him, but it's like, oh fuck. And it might even be that he starts like, because he hasn't used the phase shifter long, he could like maybe reactivate it for a brief window and like just pop back into the ship to try and dodge it. Maybe. I don't know if he'd do that yet, because I think he still was hoping to not have to. No, that's what he does. Phase shifts his way back in. He phase shifts his way back in, or at least he's trying to in time. So this is an edge move. Oop, almost told it to do and gain ground, if only. React under fire with edge. Okay, we got a weak hit. Again, a 10 and a 7. I rolled really well, so it's thankfully a weak hit. I mean, though 10 and 7 suggest it's going to be a miss, but thankfully I rolled well. Same problem. We stay in a bad spot and we have to make a suffer move -1. So it could be that Emile gets grazed. It could be... Let's go with that. Let's keep this moving. Emile avoids the worst of it as a laser blast comes in, but he does get a little bit grazed. He loses 1 to health, and I am not going to withstand that. Our health is at 1. It is not worth it. It could just get... It's too likely to get worse. I think he remembers where the ship is. It's been just a moment. He's going to do 1 more time to try and... He's got 1 last little bit of EMP. He blasts it through the side of the ship. He can't see all that well, but he knows we're right up against it. And it's only going through like the hull of our ship, because he can direct this pretty well now. He is not afraid of disabling stuff that we need. He sends it through, trying to just get ourselves back in control. So this is this time it's one last attempt using the last of our EMP. This goes down to 0 now. It's edge with a +2. Can we get back in control? No, we can't. These dice have finally come back. 10 and 8. That was a miss. I used the last of it, and I can't get us out of this bad spot. In fact, the situation worsens. We stay in a bad spot and must pay the price. Okay. What is the price we pay? Apart from the fact that I'm out of EMP. It certainly could be that Emile is not able to direct it as well as he thinks. And what if the Beowulf, its systems are offline? We accidentally disable it. It blasts out. He's too stressed to control the direction of it. It disables the ship. Like, we need to work to get it back online. We're a sitting duck. Which means it's now or never. We have to just pull the ripcord on this, even though it's so likely to just not go perfectly. We've got to disable their ships. Otherwise, the Beowulf is just fucked. And, of course, the ship is in position, so let's do it. We're going to take decisive action. We're going to set off the device now, try and disable both ships in one go. Hope that these dice stop rolling fucking 10s and 9s and stuff. We've got decent odds. Come on. Come on, hold together. Let's roll it. Strong hit with a match. Double 4. There we go. And because it's a strong hit with a match, it stays a strong hit. Even though we're in a bad spot, we get to count the strong hit as a strong hit. So we prevail. At the last moment, as they're going to, like, take out the sitting duck of the Beowulf, the payload goes off. It blasts these two warships. They have such an electrical burst. It gets out of the way before it gets caught up in the blast. It zaps out in either direction. They have just, like, all kinds of fires going off. We see explosions on the hull. All of it's like, they're like sizzling, smoke coming from a lot of their turrets. There's just visibly all kinds of carnage going on in these ships. Their engines, they go down. It's chaos on board. We take +1 momentum, but the fight does continue because, of course, the real objective, the one that's most important, we gotta save these prisoners. But as for whether we're going to be able to do that before they just get gunned down by the Imperium, well, that's a question for next time. Being in a bad spot, man, I'm telling you, it's a scary time. It really can spiral out of control really quickly. You saw how much, like, we were totally in control for the beginning and then just could not get out of that death spiral. We got so lucky to get that strong hit with a match in the end. Like, oh my god. Getting to have that unconditionally, it was falling apart there. But anyway, I want to think about other things. I don't want to think about how we're in a death spiral. I want happy thoughts. So that's what the prompts are going to be about this week. I'm going to roll an action and a theme, and I want you to tell me about, like, a happy memory. Something that somebody would reflect on when they're feeling down. And I've rolled transform and love. That feels pretty fitting. I don't think that'll be too hard to spin into something. What's a happy memory involving transform and love? Send me your ideas over at starforgedpod@gmail.com. Or alternatively, if you want, you can send them to me on the Starforged Discord. It's up to you. I just want to hear from you, and we can all work together on these little creativity projects. And now, this one's getting a little bit long, so it is time for me to say, play me out, music.